I wanted to take the time today and just try something a little bit different. A lot of these YouTube cooking videos are really quick. It's like, how fast can we put a recipe in? Like, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever it is. Like, how quickly can we make you learn something? And honestly, a lot of times when I'm looking up for food recipes, like if I can learn how to do something in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, that's great. But in this case, I wanted to do something a little bit longer to really teach anyone out there, not necessarily the people that have been cooking for a long time, and maybe you'll learn something by watching this, but anyone that wants to get into cooking, people that don't think they can cook, people that aren't really sure how to do basic stuff like holding a knife, sauteing, a lot of just basic stuff. So I don't really even have a plan, but I just bought a bunch of different ingredients. I'm gonna hang out with you guys here. I'm just gonna cook some stuff up, do some marinating, do a lot of basic techniques, and if you hang around, you'll probably learn a good amount, and not only that, but you'll probably gain the confidence to cook, because everything I'm doing here is gonna be so simple, so basic, and of course, gloriously delicious. First thing, gotta get my meat marinated. Now there are a million different kinds of meat, and it can be pretty intimidating when you go to the market. You're like, which one do I get? Some are expensive, some are cheap. Usually the cheap ones are hard to cook because they're really tough. You have to cook them for a long time. But I got this steak. It's really just like a tender cut of steak. I mean, it wasn't like a very specific kind. It was like just like tender steak. And honestly, a lot of markets will call different steaks different things. So your best bet is to find something cheap. This was like, 3/4 of a pound, $5, pretty cheap. So I was like, you know what? Why not just get the cheap stuff, cook it, see how it is, This stuff, it's great. It's gonna cook really fast. It's gonna marinate really fast. And you get to try it out, and if you like it, great. If you don't, well, then you try something different. So the first thing to do with any good steak is give it a little flavor. I could just salt, pepper, oil, boom in there and cook it real quick. But I like to add just a little bit of marination. So right now I've just got oil. Oil's good just to put on anything. Whenever you have a steak and you want to give it some kind of marinade, put oil, salt, and pepper is always, that's kind of like the staple. Now I know a lot of people you have to salt, pepper, oil, everything. That's not always the case. So when it comes to something like steak, steak loves the salt and it loves the pepper. Now you might be watching this like, hey, well, I don't cook, I don't know how much to add. I'm going to tell you something, that is so much based off of feel. The thing about salt and pepper is is going to add some flavor and kind of bring out the flavors, but salt is really the thing that does that. Pepper just kind of goes with salt. It really doesn't have to, but it gives you a little bit of heat, kind of brings out a lot of things. But the thing about salt is it really brings out flavor. And if you try something that's bland, if you take a piece of broccoli and you cook it, right? Just cook it with nothing and eat it. You'll taste a little, you'll taste freshness, you'll taste a little bit of broccoli, but if you sprinkle salt on it, then it gives you that explosion of flavor. And that's really what the salt is doing. It's taking your tongue and it's saying, hey tongue, there's something here that wants to be brought out. So we'll open up your tongue, open up your taste buds, and actually make you taste the things better. Now the thing is, when you're trying to marinate something, often what happens is you're not really sure how much salt. That's why in the case of something that's not like raw beef, you can keep tasting it. And what they say is add salt, keep adding salt till you're just starting to taste salt. You don't want it to taste salty, you just want to start tasting it. So once say it's broccoli for example, and you're mixing, add a little bit of salt, mix. And once you're just starting to notice the salt there, that's when you're good. If it gets too salty, it's too much. But remember, with cooking, you can always add, can't always easily take away. So I've got this steak, and honestly, I'm gonna keep it simple. In a case like this, I'll probably add a little bit of hot sauce, just to give it a little bit of kick. And when you're adding hot sauce to steak, it can be a really hot sauce if you're doing a quick marinade, because it will just sort of help the flavor along. But something that's this thin does not really need marinade. A lot of meats that are thicker. Thing is, if I'm thinking about this steak, right, it's super thin. Now, if I have a thick steak and I put something on it, for it to get from the marinade to get to the center of the steak is going to take a while. This is kind of almost like an instant marinade. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is turn this pan on. Now there are lots of different types of pans. The thing about this pan, you notice it, this stuff here, this is non-stick. The beautiful thing about non-stick pan, of course, is that stuff doesn't stick to it. And there are better pans, I'm not gonna lie, like cast iron for cooking steak, but when you're just starting out, I always say the best thing to do is just buy a non-stick pan. You can cook anything on it. Super versatile, and stuff won't stick. Eggs are great. They're not going to get stuck to the bottom. But anything really works in a non-stick pan. It's kind of just a go-to shot. So once that gets hot, add a little bit more oil in there. Now the thing about oil is it's going to help cook things. It's going to help brown things. It's also going to help so it doesn't stick. So if you have a non-stick, you don't need to add as much oil. If you're cooking with something else, you might need to add more oil. It's going to stick. It's going to stick. But I'm just going to get this hot. And if you're wondering how things are hot, now don't touch the pan. But if you put your hand in there and you start to feel significant heat, that means the thing is getting pretty hot. Also, if you look at the oil, notice how it's kind of in here. If I go like this and it's like starting to race, like see how it's like going really quick, like that means that the oil's hot, because if it wasn't hot, it would kind of be a little slower. So what I do is take the meat. By the way, these things, tongs, incredible. They're like kind of like having a hand that can touch anything with no problem. All right. Pop the meat down, and you know, of course, you hear the sizzle. That means that it's pretty hot. All right, now what I like to do, put the bowl away. Personally, while this is cooking, I'm just gonna go wash this off real quick. It's got the raw meat on there, might as well give it a wash. All right, cool, so while that's cooking, now I have a chance to do something else. This is a knife. It can be a very dangerous thing. It can be a very safe and smart thing if you're smart about it. A lot of people, when they're holding knives, they're kind of like, you know, oh, look, how do I hold the knife? Or maybe you see people do this thing. They think for some reason that makes sense. You know, but this is not how you want to hold a knife. It doesn't really make any sense. There are a couple of different ways that people say to hold a knife. My personal favorite is you kind of take the knife, and instead of holding it on the handle, you actually pinch it. You're still holding part of the handle, but you take your thumb like so, like that, and then just kind of pinch it together. So these two fingers are holding it, and then the other fingers, 3 fingers are curled around the knife. And the cool thing about this is it sort of makes the knife become one with the hand, see? Versus like this, where it's kind of wobbly and you're cutting and you don't have control. This makes you like you're right in there. So what I'm gonna do, steak is great, but with peppers, it's even better. Red pepper, expensive. Yellow pepper, not always as expensive. Green pepper, maybe it varies, but usually even less. Cool thing about a green pepper is it actually is the same as a red pepper, but red peppers, they take longer to mature, because as these peppers, these green guys, they start to mature, it's kind of like a tomato. A green tomato is really just a red tomato that's still a baby. As it slowly starts to mature, it gets red, it gets sweeter. So usually these are cheaper because they take less time to grow. Yellow peppers are, I think, just yellow. Let's see how it's going on. Okay, this meat, because it's really thin, it's gonna cook very, very fast. So you don't necessarily want to allow it to overcook, because if it starts to overcook, it's gonna get really tough. And wow, look, honestly, the cool thing about this experience is that the meat that I'm cooking here, I've actually never cooked before. So to be honest, I don't really know what it's gonna do. And because it's so thin, I don't really have to worry about, like, is it done, is it not done? Chances are if you cook this meat for a few minutes, it's gonna be finished. So even though I'm the expert over here and I'm teaching you guys how to cook, truth is, I love going to the market and buying stuff I've never cooked with, because that is part of the fun. It's part of all the fun. Now I'm touching this, and I notice it's starting to feel like it's cooked. And for thicker cuts of steak, it can be a little bit more confusing, because people don't really know, like, well, how do I know if it's cooked? Like, you know, how do I know if it's finished? I follow the directions and this and that. And the thing is, a lot of it comes down to feel. If I'm feeling this, if you look at this, it's kind of like springing back a little bit. Now, whoopsies, it fell on the table. I'm gonna just show you guys a couple different donenesses. So if I cut into here, this one was a little bit thicker. See, it's still raw inside. Whereas if I take something like this right here, and I feel it, that feels like it's cooked all the way through. Look, it's cooked completely all the way through. So what you're essentially doing is you're feeling the steak, you're becoming one, you're becoming friends, you guys are kind of dating. So I got those meat juices in there. I can take a little bit out, I can pour it in, but I'm gonna wipe this out. Paper towel. Just wipe that stuff out, because you know what? Other people want to get into the pool party and the steak has been taking up all the space. Okay, so we'll get back to the steak in a second, but for now what I'm gonna do is just take this pepper, and remember, I hold my knife like this. Take the pepper and just kind of cut down. There are a couple ways to cut, but I like to sort of cut the sides off, like so. Cut around all the seeds, right? And then just cut that off. And then we can say goodbye to you. Cool? Anything that's left over, you can just kind of peel it out there. Very, very simple stuff. Cooking is not hard, I promise you, if you've never cooked before. Like, just do anything, just try this very simple stuff. It's really just about having fun and screwing around. If you make a mistake, you know, you do it again. You try again, no big deal. Paper towels are always my best friends in the kitchen. You can wipe stuff off. So these peppers, knowing that I'm holding my knife like this, you can really do anything with them. You can cut them this way, you can cut them this way, you can cut them into cubes. I personally like just doing these thin, long guys like so. And you know what, if you don't have much space on your cutting board, what you can do, look, get some oil in there, it's hot, and then just start throwing stuff in. It only takes a minute to cut. I'll even show you guys here, right? But if some cook before the other ones cook, it's not a big deal. Let that go. You can give it a little bit of salt. Salt it now. You know, and you're wondering how much salt. Honestly, like at first, I just kind of give it like, I pretty much just put enough salt so I kind of get it around. Like every part gets a little bit of taste of it, and then you can always add more. Now, just to show you guys a trick while these guys are cooking, I've got the knife trick, holding the knife feels good in my hand. If you're not sure about it, try it a couple ways. Try cutting like this, see how it feels, and try this grip method, right? And just see how it feels. You'll probably notice that you have a lot more control. Like, I'm in it. I'm really in there. I'm having a good time. I'm connected to it. I'm close. And also, my knife is sharp, which people are afraid of sharp knives. The truth is, the duller the knife, the more dangerous. Because if this knife is dull, and I'm trying to cut this, and I slip, goodbye fingers. So if you get a nice sharp knife, you know, and I'll show you guys how to sharpen it later, but if you get a nice sharp knife, it's going to go a long way. Now, one other note, when you are cutting stuff, if you notice my fingers, they're actually kind of curled back. If my fingers are like this and I'm cutting, say goodbye to my fingertips. Good night, goodbye fingers. But if I curl my fingers back like this, what happens is I rest the blade kind of along, like below my knuckles. So that way, as I'm cutting, there's no chance of it slipping, and also my fingers are guiding the knife back. So every time I take a cut, I just pull my hand back a tiny bit with the knife, and it's like boom, boom, boom. I just keep, knife takes a cut, goes down, I go back a little bit, knife takes another cut, go back a little bit, and you just keep doing that until you cut everything. It's good, you know, it's just little cool tricks to be a little more safe in the kitchen. Now, peppers are great because, to be honest, a lot of people do not like raw peppers. It took me a long time to really get into them. And one thing I found with a lot of vegetables, if you don't like a vegetable when it's raw, try just sauteing it. And that's really all we're doing here. Basically, a pan with a little bit of oil, get it hot, put some kind of vegetable in there, and that's essentially what you're doing is sauteing. There's lots of different things. There's braising, which is cooking with a liquid. There's roasting in an oven, but this is just sauteing. And sauteing just does a really good job. It breaks the vegetable down, it makes it sweeter, brings out the flavor. Again, I love eating raw vegetables now, but there's something about cooking them that just really makes it a special experience. And it's that simple. And even just this together on like tortilla, it's like you pretty much have a fajita. But anyhow, as these cook, I'll show you guys a little something. So if you notice, this is a thicker cut of meat. And if you look at it, you'll see it's brown here, then it's pink, and then it's literally raw. Now, if you like eating something raw, you know, it's good. Raw, why not? Chewy. A lot of people like their steak raw. This, on the other hand, this is well done. Completely cooked all the way through. It's one color. The outside is the same as the other part. Now, in the case of this steak, and you might not know until you cook it. In the case of this steak though, once it's cooked, it's actually very tender. When it's raw, very chewy. Not the case for all steaks. This one, still chewing the raw piece. Still chewing, tender. So, you gotta let all the steak sit. And with thin steak, it's not really that important. This is a great steak for a cheesesteak. You take a steak like this, and you were to just chop it up and just throw it in a pan real quick, it will make an incredible cheesesteak. Maybe we'll even do something in the vein of that. But I'm gonna let this sit. If it's a thick steak, it's good to let, say you have a steak that's like inch, half an inch. You saute it, you sear it, you get it to where you want it to be, and just let it sit. Let it rest for 5 or 10 minutes. It's gonna relax. Juices are gonna get all flowy and have a good time. All right, so peppers are there, and you know, I'm doing this like these fancy sort of flip things. You don't have to do that, but if you wanna do it, just know that it's all in the confidence. So I'm going like this, I'm kind of getting ready for it, and you sort of, oops, see, I even lost one, but it's no big deal. You eat that one on the floor, it's delicious. So basically pushing forward, and as I'm pushing at the right moment, I just kind of pull back, and it's a finesse thing. You feel it, you practice it. Before you know it, you'll be impressing your friends, and they'll be like, wow, he can do the thing. That's the thing. When you're cooking, the first step to being impressive and cool is being able to do that thing. That's the thing. But cooking really is not about being cool. It's about just having fun and hanging out. You know, it's cool to cook for people and have a good time, impress your friends, whatever. But if you notice, like, I don't really know what the plan is. I just grabbed a bunch of ingredients. I'm just gonna cook a meal just to show you how easy it is. So, mushrooms. I'm gonna throw these guys in here. These are baby Bella. There's also white button mushrooms. There's a million types of mushrooms. You can even, as you learn, like I like to go out into the fields and woods and, you know, forage for mushrooms, find wild mushrooms, very dangerous, so you have to know what you're doing. But to start, forage in the supermarket, go to the supermarket, get these mushrooms, they're cheap. This pack here for, I don't know, you know, a pound or so of mushrooms is $2. Now mushrooms do cook down a lot, so, you know, they're gonna look really big and then they'll cook down and you'll be like, where did they go? But it's okay because they're delicious. So you can just wash these underwater, or you can use a mushroom brush. A lot of people believe that you should never wash mushrooms with water because they soak up mushrooms, but I'm telling you right now that is a bunch of bukkake, because you can wash mushrooms and that's no big deal. But in this case, you know, give them a brush. If you don't have a mushroom brush or a vegetable brush, just kind of brush them off, run them underwater. And if you don't like the stem, do the stem in here, take it, just go like that, just kind of push it, pop, the stem comes out. Show you again. Take this big guy, boom, stem comes out. I personally like this stem, I don't want to waste anything. But in this case, I'm just going to kind of slice these things up really thin, just like so. Actually, I think it looks pretty cool if you notice, like if you cut it with the stem, it's a cool looking mushroom. But you know, whatever you can do, it really doesn't matter. This kind of cooking, it's all about just heating stuff up, adding some flavor. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll buy a bunch of stuff, just start heating things up. I'll cut these mushrooms, I'll saute this together, I'll put them in a bowl, I'll cook the steak, and then once I'm done, I'll look and see what I have, and be like, oh, you know what, I can make a blue boom boom. So sometimes before I'm really ready to like commit to a certain kind of dish, I just start cooking, get the oven on, get the pans hot, just start cooking away, and then the magic will start to come. And the great things about this kind of food is everything's gonna taste good. You throw it on a tortilla, you heat up a tortilla, add a little bit of salsa or something, and next thing you know, you're eating delicious tacos. All right, cut these mushrooms up, get them in there, give them another toss. Sometimes you might want to add oil. Mushrooms are like sponges, so they will soak a lot of the stuff that you have in there. If you notice your pan getting dry, you can give a little bit of add more salt. Now look, this is a nice sea salt. Every salt has a different experience. So like kosher salt, if you're going to start with something, is the best. If you're using table salt, it's going to be super salty. Kosher salt is really good, adds good flavor, isn't too salty. Sea salt is a little more intense, but I'll show you guys. I'm just kind of, every area I just give a nice splashing of salt, like boom, boom, boom. And next thing you know, there we go. Add a little bit of pepper, same deal. Every area gets its own little experience of pepper, nothing too crazy. You get them in there, you get them rocking and rolling. Now, you know what, with this steak, now that I've tasted it, and now that I know it's nice and tender and it's cooked, I'm gonna slice it up. That way, I can heat it up again. You don't have to worry too much about it getting really tough. Some steak is delicious if it's cooked, you know, medium rare, and then when you get it to be like well done, it gets really tough. This steak is not the case. It's delicious. The more it's cooked, which is a good thing, because if I'm cooking like tacos or something, I don't have to worry about getting overdone. But just to give you guys another reference, I showed you the, you know, rare. This is medium rare. See how pink it is? This, with good steak, like if you're doing, you know, filet, ribeye, strip, like this is personally my favorite. This is what a lot of people talk about, getting that medium rare. But I'm just gonna slice this up. I don't know, why not like little strips there. Maybe I'll even put it in a little bowl. And then what I'm gonna do, when I'm ready for everything, my steak's practically cooked. The best part about all this is, I take my steak, heat it up real quick, and put it in whatever I want, and it's going to be amazing. Clean my board off a little bit. You could just run this underwater, but one thing to note is when you are using raw meat, be careful. It's better to cut it on a plastic cutting board because the meat juice will get soaked up in the wood, which is why I didn't even cut it. I cooked it first, and then I cut it once it was cooked, once it was safe. Okay, now I want to show you guys another little something. A lot of people like to have pasta, you know, and pasta is great. It really is. But there are a lot of other kinds of noodles out there, especially in a lot of Asian cultures that a lot of people don't know about. These are bean thread noodles. They look kind of like rice noodles, but they're actually made from beans. And often they're called vermicelli. You can see green bean threads. The cool thing about these is you just put them in boiling water. You don't even have to cook them in water, just boiling water, let them sit in there till they hydrate. And one little pack, this little thing, turned into this big, big guy. So check it out, I'm gonna put it in a big bowl. And I'm gonna take this little bowl and I'm just gonna make a little sauce. So squeeze a little bit oil. Give this a check every once in a while. And you know, if your vegetables seem like if you look at this, that is like incredible. That is what you're after. If it starts to get too dark, if it starts to burn, take it out or just turn it down. But this is looking really good. Really simple, I barely did anything. So I got a little bit of oil. I'm gonna take some soy sauce, which soy sauce is just a great, great staple to have. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, take a little bit of mustard. Love mustard and everything. Squeeze you in the morning, yeah. I'll squeeze you. And this is just some white vinegar. Any good vinegar will do. Give it a squirtski in there. Take a little whisk. Whisk that together. Now, soy sauce is extremely salty, so you don't really need to add salt. But what you do need to do is taste it. Now, to me, that's just delicious. You taste it. If it's not delicious, if you want to add spice, go do whatever you want. Maybe I'll add a little cumin. Cumin's like big in Mexican cooking. If you smell it, it's like every Mexican restaurant, they're making their tacos, they're putting this on. Why not just sprinkle a little bit on there at the end? You'll smell it. You know, with herbs, what you smell is what you get. So take the time, just take the herb, put it up to your nose, smell it, and if that smells good to you, and you want to add it to your food, then go right ahead and add it. Give it a little whatcha. Looking incredible. Okay, now, got this in there. I'm gonna pour it into the noodskis. Right? Boom, boom, boom. And I know it's not looking that pretty and that special right now, But that's why I'm looking around saying, okay, what else do I have? All very simple. Oh, I'll put you down here. There you go, kind sir. I've got a chili. Typically, chili, the smaller the hotter. Not always the case, but these are some hot bastards. So, give them just a little tiny bit of a cut. Being careful, because if you are touching the chili and it's really hot, it will burn your hands. Jalapenos are good to start, but even so, if you're touching the jalapenos too much inside and the seeds, your hands will start to literally burn. So what I like to do at this point is just go ahead and give yourself a quick little wash. And we're back, and we're back, and we're back. I really don't even want to stop this. I just want you to know, like, we're hanging out here. There's no pauses. There's no video magic. By the time this video is done, you know it's going to be done. So I added my chili. Now avocado. Oh my God, are you seeing this? Are you smelling this? Avocado, some of the greatest thing in the world. It's creamy, it's fatty, it is delicious, it's refreshing. But a lot of people don't know how to cut them. So the kind of most basic, sort of like normal method is you take like the long way. So imagine you're putting the avocado up like the tall way, and you put your knife into it like so. I'm gonna be careful, but you basically just take the avocado and slowly turn it around. You see what I'm doing? Just slowly turning it around like so. So there's just one line all the way through. Then give it a twist and boom, out goes the avocado. If you want to get this thing out, as long as it's ripe, all you do is take your knife and be careful because your hand is going in there. So just take your knife and just give it a little pop right in. Right? See how it's in? Now I twist and out comes the pit. To get the pit off, you simply just pinch and go boom. Now there are a lot of different things with the avocado. You can scoop the avocado out with a spoon. What a lot of people like to do is take their avocado and cut it inside the avocado. Well, you've got to be careful. You can do it like this, but if that knife pierces through the skin, there's a cut to your hand. See, we're always thinking ahead. So if we think ahead, then we won't fall behind. Cool? So now, cut the avocado. It's already magically cut up in there. And yeah, there's little bits of brown parts. You can scoop them out if you want. I personally don't care. Some people are like, oh, it's good for you. I don't care. Take this guy, go around. See, it's just starting to pop out like it's magic. See that? Pop the avocado out, like boom. And I'm gonna actually save the other half. Now, just give this a little turn. You can give it a taste if you like, which I recommend because it's always good to taste stuff. Get a little piece of avocado. This would look great if you had cilantro. I don't have cilantro. Honestly, it's amazing. Okay, so peppers and onions are done. Put them off into a bowl. And honestly, one thing that I like to do actually, when I'm cooking, make a little bit more than I need. Take these guys, put them in here. That way, when I'm done cooking, everything that I don't end up using, whatever I don't eat, it's already going to be stored. There's very less cleanup. This is already ready to go. Put it in the fridge. Boom. Shakalaka. Now, put that heat back on. I'm going to show you guys how to make one of my favorite things. Potatoes were not only amazing because they're amazing because they're delicious and they're good for you. And honestly, they're cheap as hell. Get a bunch of these potatoes. They go a long way. One potato will fill you up. I just kind of slice it down. What I like to do is take the long way and just start to slice it. Again, remember, one by one, keeping my fingers in a good place. Control. If you notice the potato's like wobbly, try to move it around until you find a safe place. But if it is wobbly, just be mindful. It's the biggest thing about cooking. When you're starting, actually, anyone out there that's just starting how to cook, I'm actually jealous of you because if I could go back in time and start learning how to cook now, I'd be a lot more mindful and I wouldn't develop bad habits. And one of the biggest habits that cooks do is they rush and then they end up cutting themselves. if you look at the potato and you're like, oh, this is kind of wobbly, know that there's a chance that your knife's going to slip. So when you're cutting, make sure it's firm. Just go one by one. If you're watching yourself and you're paying attention, just like learning anything, you're not going to develop those bad habits of rushing. And I know cooking, some people are like, oh, I don't have time to do it. It takes too long. It's too hard. It's all a bunch of bullcrap. All you have to do is just have some patience and just practice. So potatoes, with this kind of thing, like it's kind of fun to stack them up. Instead of cutting each piece, what I'll do is I'll stack them up and just be careful. Go down like so, cut them in half, and then just make these little pieces, right? Once they're in there, add a little bit more oil to the pan. The pan is hot. You can see the oil is just flying around. Boom. All right, cut these guys. Cut this. The ends, if you see any brown spots, you can just cut them off. Totally cool. Kabloom, kabloom, kabloom. Okay, now potatoes go into there. Now, just like steak, but even more so, potatoes freaking love salt. I'm always amazed how much salt they want to take on. So I'm just going to get those going. Also going to add some chili powder, which is just kind of a staple. It adds heat, adds deliciousness, adds that color. Maybe a couple chili flakes, even extra hot. I like my spice. A little more cumin. If you're like doing something like Mexican and you know, if cumin's like a staple for what you're doing, just keep adding it little by little and everything, and it will kind of bring all the foods together. All right, I got that there. Another great thing, if I have it, yes, paprika and potatoes. Amazing. Add a little bit of paprika. Now you're wondering how much again. Again, for me, it's just, I'm just sprinkling it. I'm just giving it a light covering. I'm not drowning the bastards in paprika or anything. I'm just giving it a light coloring. And you can always taste, you can always add more flavor later. It's not like it's going to screw up too bad if you don't add the right flavor right now. All right. So while that's cooking away, you know, bring the heat up a little bit, add a little bit more oil. Potatoes like crispy oil. These are going to be delicious home fries. Let me show you guys a little something. Corn tortillas, they are absolute lifesavers. They're cheap. It's like a couple dollars. You get like 50 of them. And they're not much, to be honest, to like, so even some of these are broken. They're probably old. It's fine. Just find a couple good ones. The truth is about corn tortillas is they're really not that special on their own. But you buy these things, you fry them in oil, you have the best tasting nacho chip you've ever had. You take them, you heat them up, you throw them on some fire. They just really reheat well. But just eating them by themselves, they're going to taste kind of like, almost like you're eating this like ground up corn, which is really, that is all it is. So it's going to taste just like that. All right. Now the other beautiful thing about cooking in this way is that everything you're cooking, you're going to taste. It's not like you're baking a cake and it's like you have this one shot, it has to come out perfect. No, everything you're cooking, like I can be tasting the steak as I go. I can be tasting the peppers. It's good. I'm tasting the potatoes to know when they're done. And that is a great way to not make you feel intimidated initially. Getting an avocado, take some lime juice, squeeze it on there. This avocado is going to stay extremely fresh. But in this process, you know, I've decided that I kind of want to use that avocado. So now I'm going to scoop the whole thing out, right? And in this case, I'm going to slice it down like so. Get these nice long pieces. All right? Now cut them this way. Why not? And I'm going to put them back in with this little thing. Because not everything when you're cooking, I'm only showing you this, so that when you're cooking, not everything has to be cut the same way. If you're a chef, if you're going to culinary school, if that's your thing, and like you have to cut everything perfectly, that's fine. You know, in a lot of restaurants, they're very demanding of that. But you know, if you're just having fun and you're cooking for friends, things don't have to be that consistent. Just to be, you know, invite some friends over, have a good time. Cook for some people, or just cook for yourself. And as long as you're having fun with it, don't feel like it has to be intimidating. You know, the first times you cook for people, try the recipe yourself a couple times and just see how it turns out. You know, and if it's not good, if your friends eat it and they're like, it's not that great, or maybe it just needs more seasoning, don't feel like you have to end. Like if I taste this right now and I'm like, you know, it just doesn't have that boom. When I'm sitting at the table, I don't just accept defeat. I go to the cabinet, I grab the salt, I squeeze some salt in there, and mix it around, and I'll be damned if I taste it again to make sure that it's better. There you go. It's actually a big difference. And if it's still not good, well then add some more salt or add whatever you want. Oh wow, these potatoes. Now, back to this meat. Tender, not much flavor. So, back to the salt board. Give it a quick little mix. And this way, when I'm ready to go, I can honestly take my steak and here, do the same deal. This is one of my favorite things to do. Get everything lined up in these Tupperware containers, right? And once you have everything lined up in Tupperware containers, you make your meal, take out what you want. Like, okay, I want a little bit of this, pop it in the pan. This, pop it in the pan, put it in the fridge. Next meal, same deal. Grab your tortillas, you know what? Grab, I've got some cheese here. This cheese is kind of old cheese, which is funny because if you look here, cheese is very hard. I don't want to eat that. But I don't have to just throw this away. The rest of the cheese is good. Just cut that end off, toss that, and then I have all this good cheese. The thing that's cool about cheese is it will tell you when it's not good. When it starts to get moldy, it starts to get hard, but the rest of this cheese looks perfectly good. Give it a try. Beautiful. So yeah, once you prepare all this stuff, it makes it quite easy and amazing because all you're doing, taking it out of the fridge, you're hungry, heating it up, popping it on a tortilla, and you have dinner. It's homemade, but you already prepped it the day before, so it only takes minutes to make. Okay, take the potatoes out. The smaller pieces, well, I will say this. The reason people like to cut things the same size is that everything cooks even. So if all the pieces were this size, for the most part, they would all be cooked. Like this one's probably cooked. But the bigger pieces, they're not cooked. So people like to cut things evenly so they all cook at the same time. And I get that. It's, you know, it's a really smart method. But you know what? I'm not smart. But what I am is I am someone that likes to cook and have fun with my food. And what happens when you cut things different sizes, you get different textures. Potatoes, you can eat them raw. So some of these bigger pieces, they're going to be crunchy. Some of the smaller ones are going to be a little more tender. And I personally like that because not every bite's the same. You know, I'm not always the same kind of person. I like to change things up. Let's see here. So, that being said, take the potatoes out. Now, take my tortillas, pop them in here. And these do not take that long to cook. And the more oil that I add, the more crispy they're going to get. Okay? So let them cook up. Put this away over here. Things are starting to get a little crazy. You can always stop, clean up, clean some things, throw some things out, and then get back to cooking. If you don't have much space, you know, you just slow it down and be patient. That's great. All right, these are cooking up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start considering what I want to eat. I'm going to take another bowl, pretend like this is, you know, this is dinner, which actually it is. I have not eaten today. It's like 5 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything. Take a little bit of this steak. You know, some of the pieces that are cooked, you know, kind of the same, maybe put them together. Or if you, again, same thing. If you want different consistencies, if you want some pieces that are well, some pieces that are medium, then go ahead and do that. Take some of my peppers, take some of my mushrooms, pop them in there, and take a little bit. Actually, the potatoes are hot. I'm going to leave them sit. These have been sitting, so they've gotten a little bit cold. If you want to combat that, you can sort of just cover this, you know, and they'll stay hot a little bit. But anyhow, okay. flip these guys over. Once they start to just get nice and brown, and they're starting to crisp up. So at this point, take my cheese. You can grate it, or you can get grated cheese, which is great. Grated cheese is great. But I'm just gonna put a couple pieces, a good amount of cheese on there. Okay. Put a couple pieces of cheese, and now that they're flipped over, those things will melt. And at this point, I have a big pan, so I can actually just take everything else and just put it, just to give it a quick little reheat, just put it over there. Hold on. If you're still sticking with me, that means that, you probably learned a good amount today. And I know cooking can be a thing of patience, but it's really worth it. Like this whole meal, including filming the video and doing everything and talking to you guys, it's taking me like 30 or 40 minutes. But if I were just to do it by myself, it would be much, much faster. So keep that in mind. Just gonna let that get hot. Got my plate. Take a little bit of this funky noodle salad thing, right? Go like that. Bazoom, bazoom. Doesn't have to be that pretty, Just gotta taste good. Alright, noodle salad. Topped avocado. Make sure you get a good amount of avocado. Avocado. There you go. Right. Now, once this stuff's hot, you can touch it. You want to be like, okay, it needs another second. Once that's hot, take it, put it onto your little taco guy here. All the cheese, all the meat, try to make it even, as even as you can. All right, move that over. Put some potatoes on the side. You can put them on, that would be delicious, but for now we'll just put it on the side. And then just kind of carefully slide these guys off. With your hand or however you see fit at this point. This is kind of a weird pan, it's a little thick, but slide it off. And if things fall apart, just go ahead and put them right back on. Now, I'm not finished yet. Crack an egg. This is the last thing I'm going to show you guys. Pan must be non-stick or it's going to be a problem. A little bit of oil. Crack an egg. And just fry this egg really quick. Always like to put a little bit of salt in the egg. Eggs and salt, again, very good friends. Take your spatula and kind of just move it around a little bit. Get the white cooking. Now the cool thing about frying an egg is you're getting like kind of the meatiness of the white and you're getting the yolk. And if you do it right, if you just let it sit for a little bit, see how it's non-stick? It's just gonna like kind of float around, no problem. But if you let this sit for a little bit, then give it a quick flip on the other side, then you'll have that yolk and it'll be runny. If you don't like runny, that's cool. But the cool thing about runniness is it adds like a creaminess to everything. And wow, this looks really good. If I had sour cream, you can bet your ass I'd put sour cream on it. But while that's cooking, I'm just gonna give it a smell. Get all the different flavors and everything. Okay. Now, for this egg, I just cracked it in there with oil, so it's moving around nicely. So I can give it a flip, right, like that, just very, very quickly. Or you can use your spatula. But it only needs to cook on the other side for a few seconds. While it's cooking, turn the heat off. Remember, these pans are hot as balls, especially if you're not using fire. Even if you turn the heat off, the electric is still going to be hot, so maybe you want to take it off. Even so, like this is cooking right now, so just keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is take this egg off, and I'm actually going to put it right there. Cool, and now look at this. Beautiful feast. I can like rip a little bit of the egg off. I can take my hot sauce, put a little hot sauce on here. This is a simple meal. Everything I made here is extremely simple to make. Very, very easy, very delicious. And also, I made all this stuff because this is like the best meal to just start cooking with. It's gonna be delicious. Your friends are gonna love it. It's easy to make, it's cheap. And of course, damn delicious. Thank you guys for hanging around. I'm chewing. I just want to help you guys learn how to cook. If you take the time to try to make something like this, something similar, just sauteing some peppers, onion, steak, whatever it is, give it a go, see what happens. You may find that you like cooking a lot more than you realize.